Jonathan Akol's rhetoric presents a gripping dual narrative of Uganda's systemic governance challenges. It transacts from a principled, deeply personal reflection on survival and systemic failure to a candid, revealing examination of institutionalized corruption within the highest echelons of state power.
Primers were very, very serious people.
We start with the anatomy of complicity. In Akol 1, Akol constructs a powerful juxtaposition between the idealistic framework of Ugandan constitutional law and the desperate reality of daily survival. He expertly cites the national objectives and chapters 13 and 14 of the Constitution to establish a legal benchmark where the state must eradicate corruption. However, this narrative quickly shifts from academic critique to radical vulnerability by invoking the late speaker Jacob Olanya's biblical reference to the woman caught in adultery. Akol humanizes corruption. He shares two raw, personal anecdotes, bribing Kenyan traffic police out of sheer panic and paying off medical staff at Mulago hospital to ensure his injured sister received medical attention.
Because in the national objectives, they even use the word must. They said the state must eradicate corruption. The state must eradicate abuse of authority and abuse of office by political leaders and public officers who are in office. But also when you look at the Constitution again, the whole of chapter 13 and 14 talks about corruption. Especially when you go to 225. It still emphasizes that there must be real fight to eradicate corruption, abuse of office, and abuse of authority. Now, 230 there gives a lot of authority to IGG, especially in terms of investigation or causing investigation, in terms of arrest or causing arrest, in terms of prosecution or causing prosecution. So you realize some members who are in public offices, we are vulnerable to this law because the country knew that if there is corruption which is not fought, then we will have a problem in terms of service delivery. The health centers will be affected, the roads, things like schools, generally services. And therefore, there is no way somebody can condone corruption in Uganda. But also, something needs to be said. I think I quote what the late Right Honorable Speaker Jacob Olanya said, that if we say, like in the Bible, that he who thinks you are completely clean, you should pick the stone to throw on the lady who was found of adultery, and nobody could throw the stone. I personally know two situations where I was involved in corruption. One of the situations, I was recruited in 2005. So in the process of interview, they asked me, do you have a driving permit? I said yes, because I needed a job. So they told me, can you produce a driving permit? I said, I left at home, you did not inform me. Now they recruited me. And then after 3 months of work, there was exchange of the managers now. I was posted to Kenya. The manager of Kenya was sent to Tanzania. The manager of Tanzania was sent to, what is this country? Sierra Leone. And the manager of Sierra Leone was sent to Uganda. Now, serving in Thika for 3 months, I was supposed to now come back to my workstation. I didn't know they were giving me a vehicle. They gave me a vehicle to drive to Uganda. Unfortunately, I did not know how to drive completely. But fortunately, there was a white lady who really got interested in how I do my work and wanted to work in Uganda. We agreed with us, he will drive halfway and then I will finish.
How will you finish when you don't know how to drive?
So as he was driving, I was seeing how this is driving, and good enough it was automatic. Where she was tired, I took over the driving. And I started slowly, very well, and then she told me, Anthony, please increase. How are we going to reach Uganda in this speed? Now I went to 120. From nowhere, we saw a police, and he started saying, police, police, police. Instead of stepping the brake, I stepped accelerator. Now I was about to knock the police. After stopping, the immediate thing they wanted was my driving permit. So I started calling my room in Thika that is left there. We call Uganda. Oh, it's not there. Now they demanded money. The money was about 300,000 Uganda shilling. If you change to Uganda shilling. The lady said, I don't pay bribe. I don't pay bribe. Because she's from Britain. Now finally, they said, okay, if that's the case, they removed the key, they uncuffed me, and they told the lady, pick your bag, you don't have a problem. That's the point where we had to bribe the police to come to Uganda. We drove from Kenya up to the border of Uganda without speaking. The lady was tired, her color was changed until she said, Anthony, please drive, this is Uganda. If you are arrested here, I don't mind. I drove from there to Kampala. From that time, I started driving up to now. That was involved in corruption. The second situation where I was involved, my sister got an accident in Kampala. I was in Gulu. I was called, she is sick, she has a broken leg, she's been taken to Mulago. I took her on a bus from Kampala to Mulago Hospital. To arrive in the hospital, the floor is crowded, and the doctors and the nurses cannot work on all the patients. They are running here and there until you're given something. That is when your patient is worked on. I had to pay 50,000. So I am confessing that some situations cause people to get into corruption when it is not supposed to be. Now,
the key insight here is this section is not an excuse for graft, but a scathing indictment of broken public services. It illustrates how institutional collapses forces even well-meaning citizens and leaders into systemic complicity, transforming corruption from an ethical failure into an act of desperation.
When you ask me, what is happening in Parliament? The scene is bad.
When we get to Akol 2, we look at institutional rot and political weaponization. In Akol 2, the focus shifts dramatically from the helpless individual to the structural rot within the Parliament of Uganda. Akol directly addresses the grim reality facing the legislator, exposing allegations of billions of shillings being diverted to fund political campaigns. Unfortunately, for Museveni,
the scene in Parliament is bad. So yesterday I interacted with somebody I cannot reveal to ask, what is it? What caused all this money? What was the problem? The person reminded me when we had a meeting in Gulu during campaign, actually about 4 days to campaign, the president went to campaign in Gulu, and the whole of that activity of about 8,000 or plus people. The people who are paying 100,000 for every person from grassroots, the leaders, were these staff arrested. And he told me, do you know what? Part of this money was used for the campaign. So the question is it what is happening in many institutions whereby during campaign some monies are removed and used for campaign?
Okay,
are they vulnerable this because of that?
Let me understand this.
Is it the corrupt officers who are supposed to be taken seriously? Because I don't condone it. Personally, I don't say what they did, or because first of all they have not yet been what?
I hear you, Honorable.
They are still suspect.
I hear, Honorable. So these officers in Parliament, the Director of Communications and Public Affairs, Chris Obore, involvement, accusations of involvement with over 5 billion shillings. Alongside him is the Director of Human Resource. All this money. No. Please, hear me very well. I don't have a proof of what I'm talking about.
I am just telling you a casual talk with somebody yesterday.
I'm just saying.
So
is it possible that this money was used for campaigns?
I am not their advocate. I am not saying they are not wrong. They are subject to their investigation, the prosecutors.
But you're saying that there is a rumor that this money.
There's a rumor
that this money was
that
used
part
for
of the money
campaigns for President Museveni.
That is what he said. So it's really bad if that is the case. But also, why do you accept to be involved in such a thing? If it is true, why do you accept to be involved? At the end of the day, you are vulnerable. And we have seen cases in Uganda where there are people accused and sometimes they are released, there are others prosecuted, others are left out. I think if there is a process to be done, we should ask ourselves, how was this money processed? Who are the people who are approved for the money to be transferred to these accounts? You know, I come from finance background. The whole process before you receive the money, the stuff, there must be requisition. The requisition must be approved before the transfer is made. Who are those approving the money?
But let me ask.
Those are issues of concern that he has to go all the way, the investigation, to handle all those other processes.
Here, his rhetoric balances explosive insider revelations with strategic self-preservation. He carefully couches his claims as casual talk and rumors to navigate the legal and political minefield of accusing high-ranking officials. Yet his professional financial background shines through as a systemically deconstructs the procedural anatomy of state division. He demands accountability not just from the compromised individuals, but from the entire bureaucratic chain of command, those who requisitioned, approved, and authorized the wire transfers. A call to exposes how public funds are allegedly cannibalized to sustain political power, leaving lower-level technocrats vulnerable to prosecution while the true orchestrators remain insulated. Ultimately, Akol's discourse serves as a profound mirror to the Ugandan state. It bridges the gap between macro-level political machinations and the micro-level desperation of everyday citizens. His words leave us with a haunting conclusion. Until the systemic pipelines of illicit wealth are dismantled and the constitution must is enforced, corruption will remain an inescapable, cyclical tragedy gripping both the powerful and the powerless alike.